Hi everyone, this is Kelly McQuarter, and this is Principles of Management, and we are going to discuss Chapter 5, Ethics, Corporate Responsibility, and Sustainability. Now, there are many different learning outcomes in this chapter, but we're just going to look at a few. So, what are ethics and business ethics? Well, ethics essentially involves how we act, live, and lead our lives and treat others. Now, business ethics is applied ethics that focuses on real world situations and the context and environment in which transactions occur. How should we apply our values to the way we conduct business? Well, I'm going to get out of this PowerPoint and watch a video by Simon Sinek. And let me make sure it's going to be loud enough for you guys. See? It's a really good video about ethics. So, hopefully, you can hear it well. I'm going to start it right now.
Ethical fading is an established phenomenon in social science and psychology. Um, it is the phenomenon where people make unethical decisions believing they're well within their own ethical framework. So, for example, when a pharmaceutical company that has a patent on an essential drug and they raise the price of that drug 300%, 500%, 800%, 1,000%, 2,000%, to help them meet certain financial targets. Not illegal, well, kind of unethical, right? It doesn't really feel good. Or when Wells Fargo, because they exerted so much financial pressure on their employees that thousands of employees opened millions of fake bank accounts, some of which was illegal, opened millions of fake bank accounts simply to help them make their sales numbers. Again, in some cases, what they did wasn't illegal, but my goodness, that's unethical. Sending people credit cards they didn't ask for and things like that. The amazing thing is especially like the pharmaceutical companies, we say things like, "How can you sleep at night?" They sleep just fine because they don't think they did anything wrong. And that's ethical fading, where they're making unethical decisions unaware, or at least able to rationalize away. So there's some indicators or conditions that exist that ethical fading starts to take hold. Those include things like, as I just said, rationalizing. It's what my boss wants. Got to put food on the table. Everyone's doing it. My personal favorite. It's the industry standard, right? That's part of it. We're using words, we're using language to rationalize them, to distance ourselves from the impact of those decisions, right? My boss wants it. It's really my boss. It's the standard. It's not me that's making those decisions. It's the pressure. I got to do it. I got my food on the table, right? We're creating distance. We use other language like euphemisms, the overuse of euphemisms. Like companies would never spy on their customers. Data mining we love, however, right? So we use words to, again, create emotional distance. Nobody talks about the impact that our manufacturing process is happening on the lives and the communities and the places where we have our factories. We like to talk about managing externalities, right? We use language to create distance. The old slippery slope, somebody tries it, gets away with it, maybe even gets rewarded for it, does it again, it gets bigger, other people start joining in, and before you know it, you have full-on ethical fading. And it is pernicious when it takes hold. And every single time, ethical fading happens because of poor leadership, and it can be reversed because of good leadership. Because we're rewarding that kind of behavior, we're exerting excessive amounts of pressure on people, we're sometimes threatening them. If you miss your numbers, you're going to lose your job, right? And we create conditions in which people will do these things. It almost always starts and ends with the leadership. And the amazing thing is, when these people do these things, like what happened with Wells Fargo, is they fired all the people who did it. Only because of public pressure was the CEO eventually asked to leave. But the amazing thing is, nobody thought, maybe we should fire the CEO, right? Who's the person who created the environment in which this could happen? And just as we talked before about how it's leadership that has to create the environment in which trust can thrive, so too does a leader create an environment in which the opposite of trust thrives, which is this ethical fading.
Okay, that was a pretty powerful video. So, the next thing that we want to go over is what types of values affect business ethics at the individual level. And there is one concept that you need to know, and that is called the terminal values. And what that is, these are desired goals and objectives or end states that individuals wish to pursue. And an easy way to remember that terminal usually means the end. So you should remember this by the desired goals, objectives, and the end state that an individual wishes to pursue. Now, they also have instrumental values, and these are the preferred means of behavior used to obtain these goals. Go to the next. Well, before we go over this, I would really like for you, well, we can go ahead and go over this. Let's do it. Okay, the strategic organizational alignment. And this is in your book, and it is something that you should know for the midterm. It's Exhibit 5.4. And you need to really focus on what's inside the diamond, the vision. Know what that is. Vision is who are we, who will we become? And the mission, what is our strategic purpose for operating? And then lastly, the values. What do we stand for and believe in? What standards can be used to evaluate and judge us? So you need to focus on that. And again, it's on Exhibit 5.4 in Chapter 5. So there is another video, and actually Simon Sinek mentioned it in his video, was about Wells Fargo, the fiasco that they created by doing a lot of harm to their customer base by creating fake accounts and opening accounts for people that didn't even know what the accounts, what they meant. So we're going to watch that video. Hopefully you can hear it. I'll probably put these links somewhere on the blackboard so you can watch them. But let's go ahead and watch that video. And this is about 7 minutes long, but it's really interesting. And at the end, it kind of cuts off. So it's not me cutting it off. They just cut it off. And everyone in class the other day goes, "Oh, we want to see some more," because it is really interesting. And this is about the whistleblower of the Wells Fargo bank fiasco. So here we go.
This week on the CBS series Whistleblower, when the Wells Fargo banking scandal nationally in 2016 amid allegations that employees were encouraged to open credit card accounts for customers without their knowledge, leading to even larger systemic fraud. One former employee was at home saying, "I told you so."
Blowing the whistle can sometimes be silenced, but a chorus of voices can become too loud to be drowned out. That's exactly what happened with the Wells Fargo bank scandal.
If you bank with Wells Fargo, take a close look at your account tonight.
The California Department of Justice is now launching a criminal investigation into Wells Fargo.
Claims of fraud by Wells Fargo are now going national.
The Wells Fargo fiasco erupted in 2016.
My initial reaction was, "I told you so." I told you way back when.
Bankers opened up millions of fake accounts in the name.
You didn't listen.
7 years earlier, Jesse Neutron first sounded the alarm.
Could have been stopped.
Born in Mexico, Jesse's family settled in St. Helena, in the heart of California. California's Napa Valley. She began working at a community bank, got married, and had 2 kids.
A slide since the
But in 2007, the financial crisis hit, and everything came crashing down.
The housing market seems close to bottoming out.
Millions of Americans could soon find themselves in danger of foreclosure.
I was doing mortgages. At that point, you couldn't close any loans. And my salary had reduced by 2/3. I had separated from my first husband. And all of a sudden, I have to feed 3 mouths with 1 salary.
She found a new job at Wells Fargo.
In 2008, I get a call.
Welcome to Wells Fargo.
We would love to have you work for Wells Fargo.
Was there excitement going to a national bank like Wells Fargo? Was this like, this could be something big?
Yes, I wanted, obviously to have my career propel. And I was really hopeful that that would happen with Wells Fargo. They talked about the mission statement, how we're the professionals and we're supposed to help people become financially stable.
To start, it was challenging.
Part of the training says go for great with an emphasis on 8.
With the GR8,
Yes. And so what that meant is every day you are required to open 8 accounts.
Jesse wasn't worried at first.
I had a large following of clients that in the beginning it was easy to have people switch a bank. They've been following me from bank to bank. And then I also have a large family. She would call mom and my other sisters, friends, mutual friends that we had. She would say, hey, can I open an account for you? Like, Jesse, really, do I need a 4th one?
Jesse says the numbers didn't add up.
St. Helena, at the time, the population was right around 5,000 people. And so if you do the math, there was 5 of us, 5 bankers. If each of us does 8 accounts,
That's 40 a day.
that's 40 a day. Then 125 days, every single person in St. Helena is going to have accounts at Wells Fargo.
What kind of customers was your bank targeting?
Mainly the farm workers.
These were the most vulnerable clients. Less educated, they didn't speak the language, they might have fear of deportation.
Yes.
And if these potential customers weren't coming into the bank on their own,
Right behind me, we have the people that are waiting to be picked up for work.
Jessie says some of her managers urged her to lure them in by any means necessary.
They would say, Jesse, button your shirt, shake your skirt, go to the corner, and go bring those customers. They're going to come running, and let's open them accounts.
She refused to do it.
Everything that I knew or that I had built in my head, my idea of what Wells Fargo was about and their mission, pretty soon became really obvious that their mission statement is fake, everything was fake.
And Jessie began to believe that the problems were widespread. You started noticing that this wasn't limited to your branch.
Yes, everyone's being pressured the same, whether it was a small town like St. Helena or whether it was a big like, Los Angeles.
Jessie discovered that some bankers, desperate to reach their quota, were being devious. They were promising farm workers free services with their $100 deposits. Unbeknownst to them, they'd been signed up for elite accounts that required a staggering $25,000 minimum balance. Why would they do that?
To gain the $25 incentive payout.
The higher commission.
Yes. Each project has a dollar amount that's paid to you as an incentive as the banker. So if you open a basic account, that would pay the banker $10. Versus the elite account, it'll pay the banker $25.
You discover they've been charged hefty monthly fees. And suddenly, their accounts were overdrawn. So the customer's credit gets slammed because they didn't pay
Yes.
the monthly payment. Even more egregious, In order to make their quota, Jesse says some bankers opened accounts using false information.
There was a checking account open for an 11-year-old boy. The information was entered as his birthday being such that he was 16. There's also times where accounts were open for people that I know that don't even exist.
Jesse refused to stay silent. You complained about it to your supervisor. Nothing was done.
Nothing was done.
So she called HR and the Wells Fargo ethics hotline. She also complained to her boss's bosses. And what did the regional manager tell you?
A misunderstanding. That was their favorite word. It's a misunderstanding. I keep complaining and complaining, and nothing gets ever done.
You're a single mom. You're raising 2 kids by yourself. Why are you making trouble?
I'm doing what my conscience tell me to do. I could have easily jumped on the wagon and do things the Wells Fargo way and benefited financially. I chose not to because it's fraud. That's what it is.
Jesse have what it takes to take on Goliath.
I was the black sheep and I was being targeted.
She began to build her arsenal.
I had different examples of how the fraud was happening. The best thing to do was to back up whatever I was reporting with documentation. That way I would have the proof.
Well, the Wells Fargo was definitely unethical in many ways. What got me was how they, what they did to the farmers who actually just don't have much money, and they thought they were doing something good for their families. But in our book, it talks about some of the world's most ethical company honorees, and this was back in 2017, so I'm sure it's been updated. Definitely Wells Fargo is not on there, but 3M Company, which is in the U.S., and then and you can see this list here that is on the screen that are honorees. But let's see, let's go to the next. In leadership, Simon talked about that it starts from the top. If the top is telling their people they have to get so many accounts open a day, and or they could most likely have a poor performance or lose their jobs, that's leadership, and they should have gotten rid of the CEO first before they did all the employees. But it always starts from the top. You hear that saying. So there's some other definitions that I want to talk about. So let me get to that because there's so much in this chapter. But I'm trying to focus today on what is going to be on your midterm. It is important to read, as much as you can. But the next thing I wanted to point out, and I was trying to find that was it on the PowerPoints. Let's see. Okay, but anyway, it's ethical paralysis, and I just want to go over what that is. You can probably guess what that is, ethical paralysis, and it is, they consider it the dark side of organizational leadership, and it kind of reminds me of what Wells Fargo employees were going through. But what it means is they are unable to act on their values from lack of knowledge or fear of the consequences of their actions. So that's what ethical paralysis is. So remember that definition. And also look at servant leadership that's in your book. I don't think it went over much in, let's see. It did not go over it much in this. Okay, it did not go over it. But let me go over that with you. Servant leadership. I want you to know what the aspects that are central to servant leadership, and there's several of them. And let me find it in your book. I just had it. And of course, I cannot find it now. But it is something very important to know. Okay. Okay, here it is. There's a couple of aspects that are central to servant leadership. One is placing service before self-interest. Number 2, listening to others. Number 3, inspiring through trust. Trust is so important when you are dealing in any type of business. Working toward feasible goals and helping others whenever possible. So I went over some of the key definitions that I wanted you to know for Chapter 5. So hopefully, it will help you on the midterm exam. And that's about it for Chapter 5. So I will come back again and we'll continue with Chapter 6. Thank you. There is one thing that I forgot to mention in going over in Chapter 5, and that was a website that I really I showed the class the other day that I really like. Is the 100 Best Corporate Citizens 2022, and this could be an extra credit question. The number 1 company was Owens Corning. And they do it by weighted scores of different categories. And the categories are employees, environment, climate change, stakeholders in society, human rights, ESG performance, governance, and financials. And if you want to read more about it, you can go to the website. It's 100best.3blmedia.com. But just remember, Owens Corning was number 1, and it was because it's a weighted score of 91.88, and then it goes on down to the bottom, so you can look at these and see, how these organizations are ranked. And so I just wanted to give you that little hint about there may be an extra credit question on the test. Thank you.